In the silk district, dawn is a thing the slaves do not own. It comes too early, too cold, and always heavy with the smell of raw dye boiling in shallow iron vats. She is 10 when she learns that silence feeds you better than a voice, that a girl who does not speak is a girl who does not get sold. But she is wrong. When her mother goes, it happens like a dream you only half remember. A man in plum robes counts coins by lamplight, nods once, and her mother's wrist is bound with red cord. She does not cry. Her mother does not look back. The girl swallows the scream she wants to loose. It catches behind her teeth like a fishbone and stays there for years. By day, she learns to weave. Her fingers blister and crack until they look like moth wings, raw and flaking. The overseer does not bother to remember her name, calls her Little Rat when he calls her anything at all. At night, she curls between bales of raw silk, dreaming she can sink inside them, vanish into softness, smother the world. Sometimes she watches the palace boys come for tribute. They laugh as they tear lengths of silk from the loom, fingers sticky with wine and cheap incense. One day, a boy in red glimpses her and pauses, just a heartbeat too long. His hand brushes her hair. The next day, he is found floating face down in the dye vat, lips bloated purple. No one asks her what she saw. No one ever asks the slaves anything, but when she lifts her eyes to the shadows near the door, she finds a pair of them staring back, dark, unblinking, amused. The spy master is not like the others. He sees everything. That night, under the flicker of oil lamps and the stink of burnt offerings, she is taken from her loom and brought into the hush of lacquered screens. He does not touch her. He does not smile. He pours her a cup of something that smells like almonds and bitter herbs, and he waits for her to drink. She holds the cup like it might bite her. She looks at his eyes, two shallow wells in which something flickers, hungry and precise. "Drink," he says, voice soft as silk unraveling. She does. The taste is sharp, green, alive. She feels it bloom under her tongue, crawl down her throat like a serpent seeking warmth. She does not flinch. She does not ask why. The spy master watches her swallow, watches her wipe her mouth with the back of her cracked hand. "Good," he murmurs, and the shadows behind him tremble like spider threads in wind. Somewhere inside her chest, the fishbone of her mother's leaving shifts, splinters, lodges deeper. Tomorrow she will drink again. Tomorrow she will learn what poison tastes like when it comes in trust. And when she sleeps that night, she dreams not of silk, but of chains woven so fine they might almost feel like silk themselves, unbreakable and soft around her throat. When dawn breaks in the spy master's chambers, it brings no warmth. The silk screens cast long shadows that dance like ghosts on the lacquered floor. She kneels, head bowed low, as porcelain cups rattle into place before her. The spy master does not raise his voice. He does not need to. "Tea," he says, as if offering comfort. But when she lifts the cup, the steam stings her nose. Sweet almond one morning, pungent wormwood the next. No cup tastes the same twice. The first sip brings pain that coils in her belly like a nest of hornets. The second sip sharpens her sight, opens her ears to the faintest breath behind closed screens. The third sip, if she dares, strips the world to a fine blade of fear and pain. Some nights she thinks she will die here, hunched over her own bile and the echoes of her heartbeat, but dawn always drags her back. The spy master teaches her to taste life the way one tastes death. Carefully, fully, he shows her crushed beetles that can blacken a man's blood in hours, blossoms that melt the tongue from the inside out, molds that grow in the dark corners of rice stores, invisible, patient, fatal. Poison, he whispers as she sweats on the lacquered floor, is not death. It is power. It lives in the hand that pours, not the throat that drinks. She watches his lips shape the words and repeats them inside her skull like a prayer. She learns to hold the taste of almonds in her mouth without gagging, learns to coat her tongue in honey to hide the sting of bile, learns that the body can be forced to obey the mind if the mind is willing to sacrifice enough of itself. Sometimes she thinks of the silk loom, the steady click and pull of the shuttle, the comforting ache in her fingers. But that world is gone. Her fingertips now bear no blisters, only faint blue stains from powders she grinds with care. Each stain is a lesson. Each lesson is a step away from the girl who once cowered in the weaving quarter. One night, the spy master places 2 cups before her, one dark as ink, the other pale as milk. He tells her only one will kill her. She must choose. Her hand does not tremble when she lifts the dark cup to her lips. The liquid is bitter, so bitter her throat locks for an instant before surrendering. She swallows, waits, breathes. The spy master's smile is a thin crack in marble. "Good," he says again. "You live." But in her gut, something else curls awake. Something that knows it might one day slip a drop into his cup instead. And when she sleeps, the taste of bitter leaves clings to her tongue like a secret promise. To survive is to become the poison. When she returns to the palace, she wears silk instead of hemp. Her hair is pinned with bone instead of rags. But inside, she is still the girl who swallowed poison to live. Only now, the poison moves through her veins with purpose. In the Empress's rival court, where painted courtesans flutter like caged birds and eunuchs guard secrets worth kingdoms, she is neither servant nor concubine. She is a shadow drifting behind silk screens, pouring wine for men who speak too freely once their cups grow warm. They do not see her, or they pretend not to. She learns to pour so slowly that every drop listens, to stand so still that whispered conspiracies slip under her skin unnoticed. The general who dreams of rebellion, the merchant who smuggles arms in rice barrels, the concubine who hides letters in her sleeves for a lover across the sea. Each secret lodges behind her eyes, a library of poison waiting for the right tongue to touch it. It begins with a prince's toast. He raises his cup to the rival empress, his grin sharp with hidden blades. She kneels beside him, refills his wine with a flick of her wrist. No one sees the powder slip from her fingertip. By morning, the prince's lips are blue as crushed violets. His mistress is dragged screaming through the lotus gardens. The palace hums with rumors, a ghost, a curse, a whisper of vengeance in the emperor's name. She is there when the spy master stands beside the emperor's lacquered screen. She sees the emperor's eyes flicker to her, then away, as if she were no more than incense smoke drifting behind silk. She feels the pull of power, soft as spider silk, strong enough to strangle her if she missteps. Sometimes she wonders if they know, if they whisper her name behind locked doors. But ghosts have no names. At night, when the moon cuts the roof tiles in silver, she scrubs her hands raw to wash away the scent of death. No matter how hard she scrubs, her fingertips still smell faintly of bitter almond, jasmine flowers, and secrets she cannot voice. One evening, as she waits in the outer hall, she catches the gaze of a boy, no older than she was when the loom ruled her days. He is just another servant, wide-eyed, carrying trays too heavy for his thin arms. For a moment, she sees herself in his fear, his hunger, his hope that silence will save him. But she knows better now. Silence is not safety. Silence is a weapon. And when she passes him, her sleeve brushes his wrist, a ghost's blessing or a warning. She does not look back. Far behind her, the spy master watches. In the hush of her footsteps, the first rumors of her true power grow teeth. She wonders if ghosts can bleed when someone decides to trap them in daylight. At the height of summer, the lotus pond behind the palace walls bursts open with pale blossoms that hide rot beneath their petals. By day, courtiers drift past on carved boats, trailing silken hands in the water as if they could wash off their sins. By night, the pond listens to secrets whispered between the reeds. Tonight, the pond drinks blood. It begins with the old poisoner, his breath reeking of opium and fermented plum wine. For years, he was the emperor's blade in the shadows, his powders and tinctures balancing the scales of power with a flick of his wrist. She watches him from the edge of the courtyard as he totters down the lantern path, a ghost himself, but one too greedy to fade. She slips the vial into his wine, a trick she learned with her mother's lullabies still echoing in her skull. Bitter root and crushed datura seeds, a brew so gentle it kisses the heart shut before it can cry out. At dawn, the old poisoner's corpse drifts among the lotus blooms, face half submerged, eyes wide as coins staring at the rising sun. The water stains the petals red, a warning that nothing in this garden stays pure for long. Word comes on soft feet. She is summoned to the dragon throne. The inner hall is cold despite the sweat on her palms. She kneels, forehead pressed to the lacquered floor. The hush is thick with the perfume of sandalwood and ancient ink. When she dares to lift her eyes, the emperor watches her from behind a screen of golden silk. His face is a mask carved from marble. Beautiful, terrible, patient. She waits for a question, a verdict, a blade at her throat. Instead, he gestures. A single nod from the spy master at his side, and a new robe is draped across her shoulders. Silk the color of river mud, embroidered with black lotus petals that crawl like poison up her sleeves. The old poisoner's seal, a tiny jade cicada, is pressed into her palm. Its wings are sharp enough to draw blood. She feels it bite her skin, a promise sealed in flesh. "Rise," the emperor says, voice soft and final as earth falling on a coffin lid. She stands. The chain around her throat is invisible now, spun from silk and fear, but stronger than iron. She sees it glint in the spy master's thin smile, in the hush that fills the chamber when she steps back into the shadows. Outside, the lotus pond glows red beneath the sun. She knows her reflection floats there. A girl who once dreamed of vanishing into silk, now standing at the heart of an empire's venom. Somewhere under the lilies, the old poisoner's eyes stare upward, blind to what he left behind. She wonders how long before she joins him beneath the petals. By winter's first frost, her name is never spoken aloud, only hinted at with nervous glances and hushed prayers behind folding screens. She is no longer the slave in coarse linen. She is the emperor's poisoner, the silk ghost who drifts where others dare not tread. She learns how power weaves itself into the folds of a robe, the clasp of a jade pin, the quiver in a concubine's smile. In the bright halls of the inner court, she is a rumor dressed in shadows, slipping silver needles through silk sleeves while nobles bow low enough to kiss her poisoned hem. When the empress's favorite brother plots a quiet coup, she listens to his careless boasts over steaming tea. That night, she embroiders a wedding sash for his bride, pale silk stitched with a thread dipped in arsenic. No blade, no blood, just a gentle itch on the skin that becomes a fever burning the traitor from within. At dusk, she kneels by the window of her hidden chamber, grinding dried monkshood petals into fine powder. Her hands are steady, her mind is calm, but her dreams grow restless. Faces she never bothered to learn drift through her sleep, lips blue, eyes pleading. Once, she wakes to find her cheeks wet. She wipes them dry with a scrap of silk soaked in poison, as if the venom might wash her clean. In the candlelit hush of her work, she is not alone. Servants hover at the edges of her vision. Young girls too frightened to breathe too loud. Eunuchs who carry her orders to kitchens and bedchambers without question. They know one mistake means they too might taste her gift. And yet sometimes one of them dares a glance, a whispered plea for mercy that twists her insides more cruelly than any poison. She has no mercy left to give, only knowledge of how easily a cup can be tipped, how fragile a heartbeat is under her watchful eye. One evening, the spy master finds her hunched over her scrolls, lists of names crossed out in neat red ink. He does not praise her, he does not scold. He only places a small vial beside her candle and says, "For the next one." The next one. There is always a next one. She feels the guilt now, like rot under a painted wall, hidden but spreading. No antidote for this poison, no tea to purge it from her veins. She wonders if the emperor dreams of her in the same way, if, behind his cold gaze, he fears the ghost he keeps so close. In the palace gardens, chrysanthemums bloom, flowers that feed on the cold and last longer than any rose. She plucks one on her way back to her chamber and crushes it in her palm until yellow petals stick to her lifeline. Someday, she thinks, this poison will come for her too, and when it does, no silk or silver will protect her. Still, she walks on, threads her way through the shadows, leaving a trail of petals and secrets in her wake. Winter's chill claws at the palace eaves, but inside the banquet hall, heat swirls like perfume. Paper lanterns glow like captured suns, spilling gold across silk robes and painted lips. Musicians kneel in corners, plucking trembling notes that drown under the low roar of drunk laughter. She stands behind the emperor's shoulder, close enough to feel the sweat at the nape of his neck, close enough to smell the fear he hides behind sweet plum wine. In her sleeves, vials clink like tiny bells. Tonight is not hers to plan, it is hers to balance. The rival prince reclines opposite the dragon throne, his smile wide as a blade. His tongue drips poison sharper than anything she brews in secret. He toasts the emperor with honeyed insults, each word a spark flung toward the powder keg of the court. Around him, lesser lords laugh too quickly, eager to see which way the wind blows when the storm breaks. She pours wine. She listens. She weighs the room like an apothecary measuring powders on a brass scale. One slip, one tremor in her hand, could drown the palace in rebellion before the final lantern dims. The emperor does not look at her, but she feels his command in the stiff set of his shoulders. When he lifts his jade cup, she knows the signal. Tonight. In her pocket, her thumb brushes the vial's carved lid. Monkshood and powdered pearl, fast and clean. No agony for the prince, no sign for the watching lords to cling to, just silence and an empty throne. She drifts forward like smoke. The prince leans back, eyes flicking over her like she's nothing but another pretty ghost in the emperor's shadow. He raises his cup, lets her refill it with a lazy grin. "Your master's blade wears perfume tonight," he sneers. His words slur just enough for her to taste the edge of fear beneath the arrogance. She meets his eyes for half a heartbeat, and in that heartbeat, she almost sees herself reflected back. Once, she might have been him, reckless, certain the world was his to poison or purge. She tilts the cup. The powder dissolves like frost under a rising sun. Around her, laughter ripples and splinters. A concubine's fan snaps shut. The spy master's face is an unreadable mask in the flicker of lantern light. When the prince drinks, his throat works once, twice. A sigh leaves his lips, too soft for the drunken crowd to hear. And then he leans forward, one hand pressed to his chest, as if he's lost something precious inside his ribs. His cup slips from his fingers, shatters. Music stops. Words catch in half-swallowed gasps. The emperor does not move, but his hand finds hers beneath the table, a fleeting grip colder than the palace stones. Tonight, rebellion dies in silence, but as she pulls back into the shadows, she feels the truth coil tight around her ribs. For every prince who falls, 10 more wait in the dark, cups raised, knives hidden behind false smiles. And her hands, steady, poison-slick, will never be clean again. After the prince's fall, the palace holds its breath like a beast, waiting to see where the blood will pool next. Guards bow deeper. Courtiers watch their cups with trembling hands. Even the spy master lowers his eyes when she passes. A courtesy or a warning she no longer knows. She should feel safe behind this veil of terror. Instead, she feels watched, desired, owned. When the summons comes, it is not to the poisoner's hidden room or the hush of the lotus pond. It is to the bedchamber behind the dragon throne, a sanctum so tightly sealed that even rumors must kneel to enter. She stands in the doorway while eunuchs peel back silk screens embroidered with cranes and endless clouds. Lanterns flicker, painting her shadow across walls gilded with old battles no one remembers. The emperor waits, robe loose, eyes rimmed red from nights with too much wine and too little sleep. He does not greet her. He does not order her to kneel. He only gestures, one flick of his pale hand, and the room empties until it is just the two of them, a ghost and a man pretending he is not afraid of ghosts. She sits beside him because there is nowhere else to stand. He reaches for her hair, dark strands slipping through fingers that once signed the death warrants she delivered in silence. "Do you dream?" he asks, voice soft as fresh snow. She does not answer. He tells her his dreams instead, of brothers buried alive beneath palace stones, of wives who vanished behind silk curtains, their last breath paid in whispers and tears, of sons he must kill before they grow teeth sharp enough to bite him back. In the hush of his confessions, she tastes a poison she did not brew, the taste of pity. It curdles in her gut like old milk. Pity is more dangerous than any tincture in her sleeve. It softens the hand that should hold the dagger steady. He leans into her shoulder, breathing secrets against skin that remembers chains and bitter tea. For a heartbeat, she imagines slipping a blade between his ribs, ending it all. Her chain, his nightmares, the hush of her name that crawls through every palace wall. But she does not move. Instead, she lets him trace her wrist, fingertip circling the faint scar left by the spy master's first lessons. She wonders if he sees the ghost beneath her skin or the girl who swallowed death to survive. In the dark, he whispers her name, not the name she was born with, but the one he gave her when she became his shadow, the name that binds her tongue when her heart wants to rebel. When dawn comes, she slips from his bed like smoke. Outside, the lanterns have burned to stubs. The courtiers bow deeper still, pretending not to see her bare feet, the hair unpinned from its poisonous coils. Love, she realizes, is just another poison. And tonight, she has tasted enough to know she cannot trust even her own heart not to kill her in the end. It begins with drums in the dark, slow at first, then a thunder that shakes the lacquered screens and sets the palace birds screaming from their cages. Beneath the drums come the cries, men loyal to silver and iron, not silk and secrets. She wakes before the emperor does. Even in sleep, he clings to her wrist like a child clutching the edge of a dream he cannot bear to lose. She slips free, her skin numb where his touch lingers. Outside the bedchamber, smoke curls like incense through gilded corridors. Servants flee, silk slippers slapping marble in blind terror. Somewhere beyond the walls, a rebel general shouts her name, or the ghost of her name, as if conjuring her from the dark corners she has haunted too long. In her hidden room, she finds the blade she has never used, the slender dagger the spymaster left her years ago when she first became his silent promise. She weighs it in her palm, the cold steel as familiar as the vials hidden in her sleeves. By the time she returns to the Emperor's side, he is awake, eyes wild, robe half pulled across his chest like armor that will not hold. He sees the blade, the poison, the smoke beyond the silk curtains, and for a heartbeat, the dragon throne is no more than a crumbling cage. "You will stand with me?" he whispers. It is not a command this time. It is something closer to pleading. She does not answer. She kneels, presses her forehead to the cold marble, and when she rises, she places the vial in his trembling hand. Monkshood and crushed pearl. The same mercy she gave the prince, the same silence she's given 1,000 nameless souls. Outside the doors, the crash of spears on lacquer, the hush of footsteps that mean death for everyone inside these gilded walls. She helps him lift the cup. His fingers brush hers one last time. Warm, fragile, desperate. When he drinks, his eyes flutter shut like a child falling into uneasy sleep. His lips curve in something almost like gratitude. Then she stands alone beside the dragon throne that was never hers to claim. The rebels burst through in a flood of steel and red banners. They find her barefoot, blade drawn, hair unpinned and tangled like the girl she was before silk chains and bitter tea. They see not a ghost, but a blade sharpened by secrets. They expect her to fight, or to beg, but she does neither. She kneels, lifts her chin, and lets the dagger fall at her feet. She has poisoned kingdoms, slit throats without a sound. But in this final breath, she chooses her own silence. When they drag her through the broken gates, dawn splits the sky like a wound. The palace burns behind her, crimson petals of flame falling where lotus once bloomed. In the courtyard, she glimpses her reflection in a shattered bronze mirror. No longer a slave, not quite a woman, not quite a ghost. Just the echo of a name whispered too often in the wrong ears. Chains gone, throne gone. Even the taste of poison fades on her tongue. Freedom, she thinks, is just another word for exile. And its taste is bitter enough to remind her she is alive.